Live from the Slightly Twisted Deck Bar, it's the Poogie Podcast with Justin Lemie.
The Poogie Podcast is proudly sponsored by Cimarron Golf Club, located in Jacksonville, Florida, off County Road 210, just west of St. John's Parkway.
Happy to have my next guest here on the show, an art department assistant and graphic designer. Graduated from UCF and was gracious enough to jump on with us today to kind of go through some things in the movie and TV industry right now. So, Jack Collins, thanks for being here, man.
Thank you, Justin. Thanks for having me. Big fan of the podcast. I feel like my whole career has led up to this moment. Very excited to be here.
Awesome. No, and definitely excited to have you. I know I've talked a lot of sports with a lot of the guests that I've had, but, obviously movie and TV is a great topic to discuss, especially with everyone being stuck inside and with those Netflix subscriptions kind of skyrocketing and everything. But how's everything been for you? What city are you in? How's everything been kind of getting through this?
Yeah, so I am here in Atlanta. For those that don't know, Atlanta is like one of the biggest hubs for film and TV other than LA and Vancouver. And it's been extremely stagnant here. Pretty much 3 weeks ago when everything sort of stopped, the film industry too stopped. So we've just been waiting for things to get back to normal. So everyone right now is just kind of waiting it out. But it's been good. I've been making the most of it, trying to eat healthy at least and work out here and there. But yeah, the film industry is definitely at a standstill right now for the time being.
Yeah, I could imagine. A lot of industries are definitely feeling these impacts of this virus, but obviously hope you're staying healthy and well up there. And I guess just to kind of start, take me through some of the cool projects that you've been on. I know you mentioned some with Netflix, maybe some other production companies, things like that.
Yeah, so I moved up here right after I graduated from UCF, which was in January 2018. And it actually took me 8 months to land my first full-time job, which was Bad Boys for Life, which is now, you can now watch it at home, which is cool. But the first thing I ever did was Stranger Things Season 3, actually, which is behind Justin. And what I did on that is I actually built all the boxes in the 7-Eleven scene and the grocery store scene. There's a ton of boxes, and also made like a button for the 7-Eleven guy. So if you see any boxes in Stranger Things, that was probably made by me. But, I've worked on, like I said, Bad Boys. I worked after that on the Coming to America sequel with Eddie Murphy. And after that, I worked on Man from Toronto, which is an upcoming Kevin Hart movie. And then just finished reshoots for a Netflix movie coming up called Hillbilly Elegy, which is based on a book. So that's kind of the range of projects I've been on since being here.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And I guess being on those types of projects, I'm sure you've come in contact with quite a few maybe big names or just cool people that you maybe remember watching on the big screen when you were growing up and everything. How has that kind of been? Any cool people that you've met, cool interactions that you've had?
Yeah, definitely. The biggest one was Will Smith on Bad Boys for Life. When he came into the office, I actually didn't know he was there yet. It was the week before we started shooting, so they were like reading through the script and whatnot in the office. And he is just loud. Like you can hear him from across the office. You just hear, ha ha, like that's a terrible Will Smith impression. But regardless, his laugh, like he's just someone who demands attention almost. And my only interaction with him was we were in the lunch line together. He was right next to me. And he's just like, man, this looks good, man. This looks so good. And I was just like, yeah, sure does. I was like so starstruck, because you grow up watching like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and all that. And I was like, he's right next to me. That's crazy. But then also another cool one was on Stranger Things. Like all the kids were just hanging out in the parking lot one day driving to work. And I was like, hey, there they are. All of them right there. That's kind of cool. But you don't want to, for me, it's weird. Like, I don't want to go up to them and like freak out because, they're at work technically. And so they don't want to be dealing with, people who are fans, like when they're trying to work. So, but yeah, Will Smith was definitely a big one. And of course, Martin Lawrence was at like the rap party and all that. But yeah, those are definitely the biggest ones.
That's awesome, and I'm sure it is a pretty fine line between being a fan of these actors and actresses, the kids on Stranger Things, and being an employee at the production company or on the set. So how does that work? Are you actually employed by any particular production company? Have you worked multiple? How does that go?
Yeah, so most people who work in the film industry are freelance. If you're working on TV and movies, you're technically freelance and you're hired by the studios to do your specific job. In my case, it's like an art department assistant or graphic designer. But like all the construction people, everyone working in camera, production, everyone is pretty much jumps movie to movie, which is kind of a risk you take because after your show is done, you have to have something lined up or else, you're not going to work, which sounds terrifying. But Atlanta is such a big hub that normally you'll have something before your show's even over. So that's how people have worked on like Sony movies, Marvel movies, a whole range of stuff. And you have like your favorite production companies to work for and whatnot. So yeah, that's pretty much how it works.
Great. And I guess the difference between movie and TV, take me through that a little bit, the time that it takes to record, maybe the hours, things like that.
Yeah, so TV, I prefer movies because you're working on one thing the entire time. You have in the art department, your big your big responsibility is making the sets and decorating the sets. So all the sets are brought up at the same time, but in TV, each episode is its own entity. So you're only working on one episode at a time, so it can get to be a lot because you'll be finishing up one episode that you've just, you've worked so many hours on, and then you'll automatically like next day have to gear up and get ready for the next episode, which is why I think a lot of people prefer movies over TV, but they pay you either way, so you get your jobs while you can. And TV normally lasts way longer, like the shooting lasts way longer, so you have a job for longer, which is nice. So yeah, that's pretty much the difference right there.
And I would say I tend to be more of a TV show guy. I think I kind of like how drawn out it is just watching it, but I could see from your standpoint, movies might be a little bit easier to work on. So I know you mentioned graphic design aspect of your job, and I know you're a pretty big sports fan. What have you thought recently about some of the NFL jerseys that have been released? I know the Atlanta Falcons recently released their new uniforms as well as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What have your thoughts been on that? What kind of goes into designing a uniform, do you think?
Oh my gosh, there's so many hands involved in making those uniforms. I am like a uniform junkie. I subscribe to a bunch of like uniform accounts on Instagram and whatnot. And I gotta say, the Atlanta Falcons, just as of today, and they're definitely different. I think they're better than what they had for sure. They have their new red jersey has kind of this gradient that goes from black to red all the way up, which is definitely interesting because I don't think anyone really has ever tried something like that in a jersey. And a lot of people are hating on it right now, but I think it's going to look really good once you actually see it on the field under the lights. But I mean, time will tell. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers obviously went back to kind of jerseys they had prior to their alarm clock looking jerseys, which I'm sorry, but those were just terrible. So anything is really a step up from that. But yeah, they're really, I think they're both good steps in the right direction from a graphic design standpoint, at least. Yeah.
And I have to ask you, because as you know, I'm a Jaguar fan, as you can see behind me. What were your thoughts on the Jaguars two-tone color helmets that they had for a few years there, 3-4 years ago?
I got to give them props for trying something no one in the NFL had tried before. And I know they get a lot of hate from like the most of the NFL community. I always thought they would grow on me, but they really didn't. I wasn't the biggest fan of the two-tone helmets. Now their redesign that they had, I know a lot of Jags fans were skeptical of it when it came up because I have a lot of friends from UCF who are Jags fans. I love them. I love the new Jaguars jerseys because they're simple, but they're really unique in their own way, which is really hard to do because there's so many football jerseys, that exist now. And the fact that they made something that looks very specific to their team and very unique, but at the same time was just clean. I gotta give props to them. I wish the white jersey had more teal on it. That's like my one critique, is that when they're wearing their all whites, there's no teal. I wish there was some teal on it. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of Jacksonville natives and Jaguar fans would say that too. I think teal was such an integral part of the team from the 90s, and I think a lot of people are trying to instill that back into the franchise. But you mentioned kind of unique, simple, maybe recognizable. I know you're a Cowboys fan, so take me through your fandom as a Cowboys fan, being from Dallas. What have you thought about the Cowboys recently? What's the outlook for them? Do you miss Jason Garrett at all?
I don't think you'll find a single Cowboys fan who is going to say they miss Jason Garrett. I mean, if you really like going 8-8, like we have been in the past, I don't know, 10, 11 seasons he's been, or was it 8 seasons? I'm not sure how long he's been a head coach, but it's been a rough time being a Cowboys fan for the most part, but makes me really excited for this season with the coaching changes, all like just top to bottom, other than Jerry Jones. God bless him. He tries his best. But having the new coaches, we have a ton of new coaches, and just seeing what they can do under different leadership is pretty exciting. So I'm at least a little bit hopeful to see it. I'm excited that we've just made moves to improve and to make changes rather than just doing the same thing every season and expecting different results, which just hasn't happened, So
yeah, I think a lot of NFL fans, when it comes down to it, they just want to see their team make that effort to make some change, and I think that kind of creates that new energy for the fan base, especially in Dallas. Getting McCarthy in there, I think, is going to be a great addition. But I do have to ask you, you being a Cowboys fan, rank these 5 Cowboys in order from your favorite to your least favorite.
Ooh, okay.
No particular order. I'm going to give them to you this way. Ready?
Okay.
Tony Romo, Zeke Elliott, Dez Bryant, Jason Witten, and Dan Bailey.
Oh, that's hard. Okay, so it was Tony Romo, Ezekiel Elliott, Dan Bailey, Dez Bryant, and what was the last one?
Jason Witten.
Jason Witten. Oh, man, that's hard. I can tell you number 5 will probably be Dez. I love Dez. I love Dez Bryant, which is why it's so hard because I like all of these players. But for me, he's probably number 5. Number 4 will be, let's see. Number 4 will probably be Tony Romo, legend, love him. But, man, Dan Bailey. I love Dan Bailey. He's my personal hero. We've talked about Dan Bailey in the past. He's a legend, one of the best kickers in the NFL. I'm really sad we got rid of him. He'd be number 3, and then it'd probably be Jason Witten and then Ezekiel Elliott because, man, Zeke is just a monster on the field. He's someone that you're very glad he's on your team and not on someone else's. So, yeah, but I'd have to say just for my own sake, Dan Bailey would be number 1 because he was the most consistent player on our team for a very long time. So love mention Dan Bailey.
That's funny you mentioned that. I think I definitely remember you talking about Dan Bailey quite a bit. And I remember back in 2016, you and I got to experience a Cowboys game together out in Dallas. And you had a little bit of a better time than I did. Cowboys won by more than double digits if possible, it felt like. But I remember Dan Bailey was a big part of the conversation, so I knew I had to throw him in there on this. But I definitely appreciate you being here. Anything else you want to talk about or add before we cut this thing off?
No, I hope everyone's staying safe. And that's my cat Zuni right there. If anyone's wondering, he's not facing us, but he's sleeping. No, that's pretty much it. I appreciate you having me on this podcast, man. I'm very excited to see how it turns out.
For sure. Yeah, I'll get this thing up here in due time, and I'll let you know when I'm about to post it. But again, thanks for being here, and you have a good rest of your week, and stay safe and healthy in Atlanta, okay?
All right. Thanks, Justin.
All righty.
Be sure to follow our show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other podcast streaming services, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel to check out unique video elements for each interview.